Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. There are two reasons why I came into the pulpit today. The first one is I've never been in this pulpit. The last time I came, I think I preached along the aisle. And then, the time before. So I've never been in this pulpit. So I just like to know what it feels like being in the pulpit. Right? The second reason is, for some ungodly reason, I can't explain it. Because I don't think I did anything to feel the way I feel. But I know this weekend I was in Philadelphia doing a retreat with some people from a church called St. Monica's. I went on Friday and Saturday, and then I came home yesterday, and I felt so sleepy and tired. And so I thought, well, after a good night's rest, I will wake up this morning feeling refreshed and not tired. Unfortunately, no matter what I do, no matter how I try, I still feel a little tired this morning. So that I came here so that I would, be up here and see if I can get some strength. So with that in mind then, I noticed that you don't feel like I do. I noticed that you look perky, and I had three little assistants there, the acolytes. Boy, are they full of energy. And I said if I could only transport some of that energy into my tired, poor old legs, I'll be doing all right. But anyway, so what you have to do is you have to help me. You have to help me in the sermon. I don't know if Father Gideon makes you talk during the sermon. Does he make you respond sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, good. So it's nothing new. There's nothing new.
We did it with you.
You did me that? Oh, I did it last time. Okay, all right.
We'll build bigger barns. We will build bigger barns.
I see. Oh, yeah. I remember. See, the thing is, and some of, if you don't, if you don't know this yet, but when you get as you get older, the memory goes. And so I'm going to different churches every Sunday, and I can't remember now what I did in which church. And so I'm dreading that I'll preach the same sermon in the same place, just forgetting that so hopefully we will not be building bigger barns. Okay, so today, here's your response. Today when I ask you say, I want you to say, Jesus, I want Jesus to be my Messiah. Right? I want Jesus to be my Messiah. Again, let me hear you.
I want Jesus to be my Messiah.
Now, I don't know how many of you remember, people don't usually remember what the gospel is from one Sunday to. When I turn like this, can you hear me?
Yes.
Because I don't have this microphone on, and I don't want, I don't want you in the back of me. I want to address you, but. Okay, yes. Now people don't usually remember the sermons from 1 week. I mean, not the sermon, the gospel from 1 week to the next. So let me remind you what the sermon was, and it always is on the. Last week the sermon was on the temptations. And you remember Jesus went up in the wilderness and he was tempted by the devil, and there were 3 temptations. And then the Sunday before that, which is the Sunday before Ash Wednesday or the Sunday before Lent, the gospel was the Transfiguration. And every Sunday before Ash Wednesday, that is the gospel. The gospel is about the Transfiguration. Now I myself don't personally like the word Transfiguration. It doesn't sound right. I disfigure. I think of disfigure, transfigure. And I don't know even why the English translation would be that, because you know what the Greek word for transfiguration is? Metamorphosis. And what more beautiful word can you use for that as a metamorphosis? When Jesus met with a metamorphosis occurred. There was a transformation, just like the ugly chrysalis grows into the beautiful butterfly, and the process we call a metamorphosis. And when Jesus went up to the mountain, there was a metamorphosis took place. And the reason I believe why we have that lesson at the beginning of Lent, just before Lent starts, the reason I believe is because we've just come through a whole period called the Epiphany. And during the Epiphany, what we're emphasizing on is the manifestation of Christ. In other words, people coming to understand who Jesus Christ was. And so let me give you a little reference in scripture that will help you to understand what that means. You will remember after Jesus was with his disciples for a little while, he met with them one day and he asked them, what are people saying about me? Who do people think I am? What are they saying about me? And they were saying, people are saying a lot of wonderful things. Some are saying that you are John the Baptist. Some of them are saying you're one of the great prophets. Some of them are saying you are Elijah. The accolades could not be any more glorified, from what they were saying about Jesus. But if that's all we think about Jesus, or if that's all Jesus is to us, then we do not understand and we are belittling the impact and the miraculous interference in history that Jesus being born or the incarnation created. So because Jesus is more than that. When they said, when they're saying that, in modern terms, you have a little child and that child shows a lot of promise and is bright and he's going to be a Rhodes Scholar, or he's going to win the Nobel Peace Prize, or he's going to be president, or you say that about a child. And so we're saying that Jesus was the prophet or Elijah. It's tantamount to saying something like that. So then Jesus turned to his disciples and he said to them, but you, who do you think I am? And Peter, speaking up for the others, he said, no, Master, we believe that you are the Messiah. And what does he mean by that? So give you an idea of what he means. When you understand that Jesus is the Messiah, when you understand who Jesus is, you understand that this is God come into the world in human flesh. It is more than a miracle. It is earth-shattering. It means that it affects the world in a fundamental and traditional way. And not only the world, but it must affect your life. So that when you say, I Jesus to be my... I caught you sleeping there. When you say,
I want Jesus to be my Messiah,
what you're saying is that you want a metamorphosis, a transformation, a whole difference in your life to take place. And it's in other words, life takes a new twist. And if you notice, as soon as Jesus said to them, Peter said to Jesus that he was the Messiah, Jesus quickly adds, he begins to say, but because I'm the Messiah, I'm not going to be like a Caesar or a great king, or it's going to be a different kind of life, and it will be different from human experience. It would transcend human experience in a very unique and different way. Because he surprised them, I think, one of the things about the Messiah is that I'm going to suffer and I'm going to die. Does that sound like anything that human beings want to hear? No, come on, you say,
I want Jesus to be my Messiah.
do you want to be nailed on a cross, or do you want any problems, or is that what you're looking for out of your Christian life? No, and yet all that becomes essential and a real part of the Christian life. So then, that's the first Sunday before Lent, and that was the lesson, and that was the gospel. And what I want to do with you this morning is to take the lesson from today, right on to the one before Palm Sunday. And I want to show you how the gospel says to us and in what ways we are going to transform our lives. We are going to look at our lives and how we're going to transform it. And at the end, hopefully by Palm Sunday, we will be ready to receive and to understand and to truly say,
I want Jesus
to be my Messiah. So then today, what do we have as the lesson? The lesson is Nicodemus. Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. I want to ask you, as human beings, if you had a son or you had a child and with all the ambition and what would you expect? In fact, I think the sociologist refers to it as wealth, authority, loyalty, influence, and power. I mean, that's what when we think in terms of the world's greatness, when we think of the world's gift, when we think of what we want to get out of this world, we are thinking we want to be a Nicodemus, a person of wealth, authority, loyalty, influence, and power. And that was Nicodemus. So that when they looked at Nicodemus, everybody looked up to Nicodemus. I mean, he was a great man as far as the world is concerned. He was a wonderful person. I want to be like Nicodemus. That's the kind of person I want to be. But Nicodemus realized that with all his wealth, authority, loyalty, and power, his life was empty, insufficient. In fact, so ashamed Nicodemus was because everyone was looking at him and, this is a man has everything. I mean, how is he going to go to Jesus, with a man of my stature? How am I going to bring myself down to the level of going and looking at some wonderful itinerant preacher? And so he sneaked in by night. And realized, but my friends, what I want to say to you and what we want to understand about Nicodemus today is that all that we aspire to, all the gifts in the world, everything we look around and we want to be and we want to become, there's nothing wrong with wanting that until we understand that as beautiful and as wonderful as it is, if Jesus is the person you understand and Jesus comes in your life and Jesus you want to emulate, there is more to life than that. That's just part of the human part of our life, but there's more to life than that. Now let me kind of build on that a little bit for you. When you're young, let me put it that way, you tend to arc your life from birth to death. And of course, some of you know that I retired again 2 months now. 2 months now. And people always come to me and say, Father Lyons, how is retirement? And I say to them, retirement is a learning process. But one of the most fascinating or mysterious or maybe challenging thing for me as a retired person is I have to begin not to arc my life from birth to death. Because if I do, there's very little left. You arc your life from birth to death. No, but you begin to learn that you have to arc your life from birth to eternity. And when you understand who the Messiah, when you understand who Jesus is, Jesus was not just a man in time. Jesus was not just a wonderful person. Jesus was not just a Nicodemus who had everything that the world could offer. Jesus was a man who bridged time and eternity. Jesus was God. Jesus was everything, the all-purpose, and Jesus was not just for time, but Jesus was for eternity. And that is why
I want Jesus to be my Messiah.
I want Jesus to be my Messiah, because if Jesus is your Messiah, time, when you look at this world, think of this world, whether it's success, you enjoy it, but it's not that's not eternal, the lasting eternity that Jesus brings. If it's failure or if it's suffering, or you know that it is not eternal. It's painful, it's difficult, you don't like it. But when you understand that Jesus is the Messiah, you can overcome, and your life will begin to override all of the difficulties and trials and problems that you face from day to day. And that is the story of Nicodemus, and that's the significance of him. Here was a man who had all that the world could offer, but yet he understood that that was not enough. He wanted something more. There's something to be added to his life, and Nicodemus made Jesus his Messiah. And so can you. I too want Jesus to be my Messiah. Next week lesson, and you're going to get all these lessons. So as we come up, I want you to think about them. Next week's lesson is Jesus meet this woman at the well of Samaria. And I want you to think about, in those days, how significant water was to life. Water was so scarce and such a difficulty that it was essential to have. Not only that, but that's what this woman went to the well at midday, because her life was such that she was ashamed of herself. Remember, she couldn't keep her husband, she was living, and so she went at midday, in the heat of the sun, when everybody else would be kind of resting at home and waiting for morning or evening. She couldn't find herself at the well, at the time when other people were there, because she was friendless, she was ashamed of what her life was, and so she went there. Can you imagine her surprise, chagrin probably, when this Jewish man, first of all, you know what the society was like, and it wasn't something that a man readily approached a woman into. That alone was something socially to be frowned upon. But what was even worse, here is a Jewish man trying to come up and talk to and reach out to here is a Jew to a Samaritan woman. And you know how the conversation continued. My friends, what I'm saying to you is, here is a woman who, in the world, unlike Nicodemus, her life was depraved, and she had no friends, no sense of confidence in herself, not knowing who she was. A woman who, in terms of the social, economical, psychological significance of it, she was a nobody. She didn't know how to talk to other people. But here, on this occasion, she met Jesus. And when she met Jesus, and when she spoke to Jesus, Jesus opened up for her a new way, a new life, and made her into a completely different person. So here was a woman who was afraid to go to the well to be among other people, a woman who was afraid of her life, a woman who felt that she was nothing. And when Jesus was finished with her, she ran back to the village and she hollered out, "Come here, listen my friend, come see a man who told me everything. Come see, this is the Messiah." And her life was changed, and she became a different person. And she, like you, will begin to say, "I want Jesus to be my Messiah." Yeah, that was the woman at the well of Samaria. Now, I don't know how long Father Gideon to take this forward. I've got to rush it through, because I have maybe two more weeks before Palm Sunday. After next week. The next Sunday, you're going to come upon a man born blind. My friends, of all the senses, human senses, like hearing, seeing, smelling, I think people say, between hearing and seeing, one of the gifts that you would never want to lose. Can you imagine not being able to see and not being able to appreciate the beauty and the wonder of the world around you? Can you understand what it means to be in this world of darkness? And yet, people overcome it. But yet, we all want to have good health. We want to be physically fit. We want to be able to enjoy and appreciate and be involved in the world around us. But here was this man born blind from his youth. And you asked him, well, what would be, if you were to get one thing more in this life, or if you wanted one thing to change in your life, as impossible as that may have seemed, he would say, I want to be able to see. Can you imagine that? And he got his sight back. But my friends, when he got his physical sight back, he got something else. He was able to see Jesus not just as a human being, not just as the nice man who gave him his sight back. He was able to see Jesus as someone who was transcendent, someone who had the answer for all the tribulations and trials of life, including his own sight. And I will say to you, if you said to that man afterwards, and if you read this story, you will agree with me, that if you ask this man, which would he have preferred, to meet Jesus or to get his sight back? He would tell you,
I want Jesus.
I want Jesus. In other words, getting his sight back was chicken feed. Getting his sight back was minimal to what he found in the person of Jesus Christ. So when you understand who Jesus Christ is, my friend, all the trials and tribulations, all the difficulties and failures, all the inadequacies and inefficiencies and deficiencies of your life pale in comparison, because you have found the meaning of your life. You have found what makes your life become something. You have found it in the person of Jesus Christ, and what you see in a person who can bring time and eternity together. And that is why forever we must keep saying,
I want Jesus.
I want Jesus to be my Messiah. Alright, okay, and that's the man born blind. And the last one. What's the last one anybody get? Lazarus. Lazarus was dead. I mean, what's the biggest enemy of mankind? What is the thing you fear most of? What is the thing that is so big that you can never understand it? I often say to people, when I go to funerals, I say, no matter how old a person is, if you live to be 200 years old, I think my mother lived to be 100 years old, and yet when she died, it was just so incomprehensible. It was just so painful, and you see me, and you say, Father Lance, after all, you had your mother for 100 years. Well, let me put that in a music with you. Listen, my mother enjoyed really good health, so when I left Tobago, I left Trinidad and Tobago and came across to this country. My mother was about 66 years, all right? And every time I go back to see her, which would be once every 3 years or so, she, I'm leaving now, and she would say to me, 66 years old, well, boy, I don't know if you're going to see me on this side again when you come back. And my mother did that for me from 66 years to 99 years. Made me feel guilty that I would never see her. But every time, the same message. What I'm saying to you, my friends, is death. I say to people at funerals, I said, the reason why death, we can never come to terms with death. We can never accept it as a reality, which it is. We can never be comfortable with it. It's because it's a phenomenon that's bigger than the human mind. It's a phenomenon that transcends human reality. It's a phenomenon that pokes itself, that protrudes into eternity. And until you understand Jesus as the Messiah, you will never understand what death is. And so, here was Lazarus. his sister, young, they loved him very much. And they knew that probably if Jesus was there because he had done that before, he would resuscitate him. Because we want to make the difference between Lazarus is coming to life, which is resuscitation. I have a feeling, doctors do that all the time. They kill people and then bump them. They do it all the time. So they resuscitate people. And when Jesus raised Lazarus, don't fool your fat, he would have died, he would die eventually. Anyhow. So what I want you to understand was, we're not talking about resurrection here, we're talking about life. And we're talking about understanding life, and the sisters felt probably that he had so much more life to give. And when Jesus came, Jesus restored the very essence of who he was, the very grounding of all that he was. Lazarus came to life again and was restored to his sisters and to his family. And when we understand who Jesus is, my friends, no matter how life is disparate, no matter how life is sad, no matter how life, no matter how we cling and we fear for our life, no matter how we know that if you understand who Jesus is and you understand the Messiah, you know that not even death can separate you from the love of God. Let me tell you what St. Paul said. Listen to what St. Paul said. I'm translating it in my own way. St. Paul says, if you understand who Jesus is, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, you have no idea, it has not entered into the heart of man, the things that God has prepared for those who love him. And so if you understand Jesus as the Messiah, and you understand the power of God and the love of God and the penetration in our lives of this power and the fellowship that we get with Jesus, and you will say you will never be afraid, no, I shouldn't say that. As a human being, you'll always be afraid of death. But ultimately, your faith will help you, and you want to get to that part where you want to say, I want Jesus to be. And when Jesus is your Messiah, my friends, there's nothing to separate you. And so, what I wanted to get across to you then today is, as human beings, and I went through and I showed you, all the things that we hanker after and we love. Like in Nicodemus' case, all, wealth, authority, loyalty, influence, and power. The woman necessarily has social friends, being confident of ourselves, having people love us and doing the right thing. That's what we want that. Like the man born blind, we want our sight, we want to be able to grapple and visualize all the world. And like Lazarus, we want to be alive, we want to enjoy the world. But do you realize that all I've told you there about those people concerns time? When your time comes to an end, you have no need. You will not need those. And so when time comes to an end, you must be sure. That's why you say with me today, I want Jesus. And when Jesus is your Messiah, you would have transcended Nicodemus' life. You would have transcended the woman at the well of Samaria's life. You would have transcended the blind man's life. And you would have transcended Lazarus' life, because Jesus is your Messiah. And so I always have a problem. Not a problem, but a struggle with time. And because when you live in time, you can't get out of it. And you have to deal with all the vagaries and the difficulties of it. But time is only time. And so, because I struggle, I wrote a poem about time, which I want to end by reciting to you. And it goes like this. And I wrote it for my daughter's birthday, but it's relevant to what we're doing. Imagine time was a giant crane, knowing where the controls were. I will certainly get permission to determine its ebb and flow. At times I release it to a fast, free-flowing speed. Another time I'll jam the latch so that time cannot proceed. I know a special circumstance. It's a precise and special one. In a place and time, I reckon, of my daughter, not a son, pressed tight against the lever,